Welcome back to the Daily Crypto Deep Dive, where we go beyond the charts and talk about what really matters underneath. Today's story isn't about hype, or meme coins, or the latest ETF headline. It's about the return of something much older, something crypto was built on: privacy, autonomy, and control. Because while most people have spent the last few months watching Bitcoin flirt with 100,000 and chasing the next big ETF rumor, another corner of the market has quietly come back to life. A set of projects that don't care about celebrity endorsements or regulatory approval. They exist for one reason: to make sure you, and only you, decide who can see your data. Filecoin, Zcash, Dash, and Monero. 4 very different networks, all built around a single idea: decentralized privacy. And this week, they've been some of the biggest movers in the entire market. So today we're going to talk about what they do, how they actually work, why they're suddenly surging again, and what that tells us about where crypto might be heading next. Let's start with Filecoin, the coin that caught everyone off guard. Filecoin isn't a payment network at all. It's a decentralized storage system, a way to store data across thousands of independent computers instead of one central server. Think of it as the Airbnb of information. When you upload something to Filecoin, you're not sending it to a company like Google or Amazon. You're splitting that file into encrypted pieces and scattering them across the globe. Each piece is stored by a miner, someone who earns Filecoin for providing space on their hard drive. What makes it revolutionary is that the network keeps track of all of this automatically. Miners have to constantly prove they're still holding your data, not just pretending to. They do it using 2 mechanisms called Proof-of-Replication and Proof-of-Spacetime. Proof-of-Replication proves that the data has been physically stored. Proof-of-Spacetime proves that it stays stored over time. Every proof gets recorded on the blockchain, creating an incorruptible audit trail. The result is trustless cloud storage, cheaper, more redundant, and more private than anything centralized companies can offer. If you run a business that deals with sensitive information, say AI training data or research archives, you don't want one corporation having a master key to your files. Filecoin makes that impossible. The network encrypts data end to end. The person storing it never sees the contents, and if one node goes offline, your file is automatically reconstructed from the remaining shards. That's why developers love it. And that's also why the price of Filecoin exploded this week. Over the past few days, major decentralized infrastructure networks, the so-called DePIN sector, have started using Filecoin as their storage backbone. AI projects are training models on decentralized data, edge networks are offloading backups into Filecoin's cloud, and analysts are calling it the hard drive of Web 3. When that narrative caught fire, the price doubled almost overnight. Not because of speculation, but because investors finally realized what it represents. Filecoin isn't a new app. It's plumbing. The kind that keeps the decentralized internet running when everyone else is chasing hype. Now, if Filecoin is about storage privacy, protecting the data you save, the next 3 coins are about transaction privacy, protecting the data you spend. Let's start with Zcash. Zcash began as a fork of Bitcoin, but with one radical difference. It gives users the option to make transactions invisible. It does that with something called zk-SNARKs. Zero-knowledge succinct non-interactive arguments of knowledge. Sounds complicated, but here's the idea in plain English. You can prove a transaction is valid without showing anyone the details. It's like paying your friend in cash. The rest of the world can see that money changed hands, but not how much or between whom. In Zcash, transactions can be either transparent, just like Bitcoin, or shielded, where the amounts and addresses are hidden. It's privacy by design, not by add-on. And that flexibility makes it unique. You can stay private or you can be transparent when compliance demands it. This week, Zcash surged nearly 80% as ecosystem upgrades, led by the Zashi wallet's new decentralized swaps via near intents, made cross-chain privacy flows practical, while shielded usage hit record levels. For investors, it was proof that Zcash isn't a relic. It's evolving with the rest of the market. More importantly, it reignited the conversation about what privacy in crypto is really for. It's not about hiding crimes or evading taxes. It's about preventing the creeping normalization of total surveillance. One developer put it best: You don't need privacy because you have something to hide. You need privacy because you have something to protect. Zcash protects your financial footprint, not from law enforcement, but from exploitation, from companies building shadow profiles out of your data, from governments collecting transaction metadata on millions of innocent citizens, from the idea that transparency is the same thing as accountability. Transparency holds power accountable. Privacy protects people. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll get straight back into the market with one of the oldest names in crypto that just made a massive comeback. Stay with us.
Avoiding your unfinished home projects because you're not sure where to start? Thumbtack knows homes, so you don't have to. Don't know the difference between matte paint finish and satin? Or what that clunking sound from your dryer is? With Thumbtack, you don't have to be a home pro. You just have to hire one. You can hire top-rated pros, see price estimates, and read reviews all on the app. Download Thumbtack today.
The next coin in that lineage is Dash, one of the oldest names in crypto and one that many had forgotten until this week. Dash started as a Bitcoin fork too, but instead of focusing on full anonymity, it focused on usability. The team wanted crypto to be fast enough, cheap enough, and simple enough to actually use for everyday payments. To do that, Dash created a two-tier architecture. Miners handle the base layer of transactions, just like Bitcoin. But above them are masternodes, special servers that manage instant confirmations and privacy mixing. The result is lightning-fast transfers and optional privacy through a system called Private Send. Private Send works by shuffling your coins with others before sending them. It doesn't achieve the same mathematical privacy as Zcash's zero-knowledge proofs, but it gets close enough to obscure who sent what to whom, and it does it instantly. Dash's resurgence this week saw a triple-digit run at its peak, with prices clearing $100 and intraday highs reaching around $150 before cooling off. Several exchanges rolled out new perpetual contracts, and the broader privacy coin sector rotated sharply higher. But the bigger reason is philosophical. Dash represents the everyman side of privacy. You don't need to be a cryptography expert or a hardcore activist. You just want fast, private payments that work anywhere. And that's what Dash delivers. Practical discretion. Not perfect secrecy, but enough to keep your spending habits out of the public eye. Then there's Monero, the heavyweight, the old guard, the coin every privacy project is compared to. Monero didn't fork from Bitcoin. It built an entirely new codebase with one goal: complete, unbreakable privacy. Where Zcash lets you choose transparency, Monero gives you no choice at all. Everything is private, always. It uses 3 core technologies: ring signatures, which mix your transaction with others so no one can tell whose coins are whose; stealth addresses, which generate unique one-time destinations for every payment; and ring CT, or ring confidential transactions, which hides the amounts being sent. Combine those and you get something extraordinary. A blockchain where no one can trace anything. You can't see wallet balances, you can't follow flows, and you can't link transactions. It's the digital equivalent of cash, fungible, private, and censorship-resistant. That makes Monero controversial, but also irreplaceable. In countries with currency controls or oppressive regimes, it's a lifeline. Journalists, whistleblowers, and ordinary citizens use it to transact without fear. Despite the pressure, delistings, regulations, constant scrutiny, Monero endures. Because at its core, it's not just a coin, it's a statement. And that's what ties all of these projects together. Filecoin decentralizes data. Zcash decentralizes visibility. Dash decentralizes usability. Monero decentralizes trust itself. 4 approaches to the same principle: the right to privacy in a digital age. And when you step back, the reason they're all moving now starts to make sense. Over the past year, crypto has become increasingly institutionalized. Bitcoin ETFs, regulated custody, Wall Street inflows, all signs of maturity. But maturity also brings conformity. The more crypto integrates with traditional finance, the less private it becomes. Every ETF share is KYC'd, every on-ramp monitored, every wallet tracked. That's not necessarily bad. Regulation brings legitimacy. But it also creates a vacuum. A growing number of users feel like the soul of crypto, the freedom, the anonymity, the decentralization, is being stripped away. Filecoin and the privacy coins filled that vacuum this week. Their rallies weren't coordinated, they were reactive. They were the market's way of saying, we still want choice. Choice over how our files are stored. Choice over who sees our transactions. Choice over whether we exist as data points or as individuals. If Bitcoin is digital gold, these coins are digital autonomy. Imagine you're an AI researcher building models on sensitive health data. You can't upload patient records to Google Cloud. That would be illegal in most countries. But with Filecoin, you can encrypt those records, shard them, and store them across nodes worldwide. No single server ever sees the full dataset. You retain custody, compliance, and privacy simultaneously. Now imagine you need to pay the contributors or the compute providers who helped you, but you don't want to expose your company's payroll on-chain. You could settle those payments in Zcash or Monero, keeping the amounts and recipients private while still using verifiable cryptography to prove they're legitimate. That's a real ecosystem. Private storage, private compute, private payment, and it's forming in front of us. Governments are starting to notice. Regulators too. But the irony is that the same zero-knowledge technology used in privacy coins is now being explored by central banks for digital currencies. The Bank of England, the European Central Bank, even the Federal Reserve have run pilot projects with zero-knowledge proofs to protect user data in CBDCs. The line between privacy coin and regulated fintech is blurring fast. Even traditional enterprises are exploring it. Banks use Filecoin-style proofs to verify that data backups are intact without revealing the contents. Corporations are experimenting with zk-proof compliance systems, where auditors can check financial integrity without seeing underlying transactions. What started as rebellion is becoming resilience. And that brings us to the philosophical question every investor eventually asks: what's privacy worth? In the traditional world, you pay for privacy with money. Gated communities, encrypted phones, private accounts. In crypto, it's the reverse. Privacy gives you value because it gives you choice. You can choose transparency, but you're never forced into it. That's what people are realizing again. That's why these coins are moving. They're not chasing hype. They're reclaiming identity. Zcash gives you optional privacy. Dash gives you speed and practicality. Monero gives you absolute secrecy. Filecoin gives you ownership of your digital footprint. Together, they're building the backbone of a decentralized web, one where your data, your files, and your finances belong to you. Of course, there are risks. Privacy tech is still misunderstood, and governments won't stop trying to control it. Some exchanges may delist these assets again. Some narratives will fade. But the underlying demand, the human instinct to keep certain things private, never disappears. That's why every time the market gets too transparent, privacy coins rise from the ashes. And this week's surge wasn't just another cycle. It felt different. It felt like investors were rediscovering crypto's roots. Decentralization not as a slogan, but as a right. So where do we go from here? Filecoin's challenge will be scaling efficiently enough to handle enterprise adoption while keeping storage cheap. Zcash will need to prove it can attract liquidity without sacrificing its shielded design. Dash must stay relevant in a world moving toward Layer 2 speed solutions. And Monero just needs to survive. Because as long as it does, privacy has a heartbeat. The next time you hear someone dismiss these projects as outdated or controversial, remember this moment. When Bitcoin looked institutional and the market looked tamed, it was the privacy coins and one storage network that reminded everyone why we built this space in the first place. Freedom, choice, and control. Not secrecy. Sovereignty. That's the real story behind Filecoin's surge and the privacy revival. It's not a pump, it's a pulse. Crypto's immune system kicking back in. Thanks for listening to the Daily Crypto Deep Dive. Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit like, follow, and we'll see you at the top.